All right, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity of having the CDA and the CDA Institute appear as a witness today for your study on Canada's defense policy update. La Conférence d'Association de la Défense.
The Conference of Defense Associations was founded in 1932, and it brings together over 40,000 active members of the Canadian Armed Forces.
Starts off with a dire premise, but one that is absolutely correct. The geopolitical environment has rapidly deteriorated. And since safeguarding Canada's territorial sovereignty is the paramount purpose of national defense, the strategic emphasis placed on protecting the Canadian Arctic is welcomed. How the impacts of climate change are integrated is also crucial, because we've seen recently floods, forest fires, hurricanes, and other catastrophes are placing growing demands on our armed forces. We see two significant and positive changes to the status quo. First, the DPU increases defense spending over time, moving us closer to the 2% target that we pledged to NATO during the Wales Summit. And secondly, it proposes a quadrennial approach to keep Canada's defense and security policy in lockstep with world events. Now, regarding the new spending, let's just say that's much easier said than done. The procurement system is broken. Every year, billions of dollars provided in SSE's projected expenditures remain unspent and have been compounding over time. Given that the system buckles at spending between $4 and $6 billion per year on capital expenditures, how can it possibly manage to spend $14 billion in 2026 without a procurement overhaul? The system and its costs have left the CAF in a dire state of readiness. Les forces armées manquent.
The Canadian Forces are lacking 17,000 members. We only have a few days of ammunition's worth, and a NATO ally should have over 30 days' worth. If Canada were called on to engage in a major military operation, only 58% of the forces would be available, whereas 40% of their equipment is unavailable or unusable. Decades of underfunding have finally caught up to us.
Stout threshold on too many key capabilities. Meanwhile, this past year, the Department of National Defense saw its funding slashed by roughly $1 billion, mostly to its operations and maintenance budgets. So it's $1 in, $1 out. And more troublesome still is that while the new monies are earmarked to acquire future capabilities, these cuts to O&M are immediate and they impact operational readiness today. We've seen good progress recapitalizing the RCAF and the RCN. However, the Army and the Reserves appear to have been given a backseat in envisioning the future capabilities and missions of our forces. There's also a missed opportunity here to envision the role of the Reserves and considering them as a means to achieve personnel objectives in both numbers and diversity. The CDA is concerned about the lack of discussion on expeditionary capability. Will the Army be confined to its borders for domestic operations in the future? The document also doesn't say enough on how we should fix the backlog in recruitment and retention so that interested candidates are brought quickly into service. Without a plan to reach our personnel numbers, the defense spending plan is notional. New platforms cannot be operated without people. Although mentioned as requirements, there appears to be no funding lines for submarines, replacement tanks, ground-based air defense, replacement labs, long-range strike missiles for the RCN and the RCAF, future artillery and all-terrain vehicles for the North, or a fast replenishment of ammunition stocks in the context of the war in Ukraine. Many of these could be streamlined by treating them as national security exemptions and bought off the shelf as proven and readily available systems. We seem not to fully appreciate the urgency at the intersection of the CAF's readiness challenges, the state of global security, and the demands of climate change, the way it's exerting it through multiple requests for aid to civil authorities. In world affairs, compared to where we stood a few decades ago, Canada has come to think itself a lot smaller than we actually are. We are the 9th largest economy on the planet, and yet we wrongly believe that we can't afford to be the 9th largest player. Many nations, smaller nations, have greater pull on the direction the world is taking, and often that's not for the better. Part of the problem likely stems from the fact that our industrial and technological benefits, the ITBs, The system has created such a chasm between how much we spend on defense relative to how much or how little capability we get for the money invested. Also, trade and industrial agreements with the United States need to be better leveraged to achieve economies of scale.
Dr. Cormier, could you wind up?
Yeah, I've got
please?
30 seconds or so.
Yep, please, thank you.
Finally, and very importantly, our governing party and its opposition parties must avoid the historical tendency to over-politicize national security and turn it into a partisan joust. National security is too important to be instrumentalized this way. To provide oversight, direction, continuity, Parliament must develop a model that builds multi-party consensus on these matters, perhaps leveraging the new quadrennial policy updates as a whole of Parliament effort. Other nations apply this approach and realize stability and positive national security outcomes as a result. And in closing, please note that Vice Admiral Darren Hocko, former Chief of Force Development and Military Lead for Strong Secure Engage, and recently Canada's military representative to NATO, is joining me today, and the committee can direct questions to either of us. Thank you.